Welcome to Book Talk. I'm Winston. I like to read good books, and you should too. Today we are unboxing an eBay treasure find, and this should be, if my confirmations are correct. Boy, there's a lot more tape on here than I really thought there was to start with. I don't like to drag my knife down the center of because I don't want to risk scarring up what's underneath. There we go. Oh, good. Yeah, this is a Troll Lord set. Thank you for your order. Well, that's very nice of you. You are welcome. All right, so this is the Tainted Lands box set, written by James Ward of many products, both for TSR and for Troll Lord Games and a lot of other places. So back in the 80s, I think its history can actually be traced back to the late 70s. Tracy Hickman was running Ravenloft for D&D fans, and the Ravenloft is the earliest dedicated horror setting for an RPG that I know of, but I'm not Shannon Appelcline, and his really excellent Designers and Dragons series would have a better history of that. The Tainted Lands is in it's got that DNA. It's in that genre. This is a dedicated horror setting for the Castles and Crusades, and I had thought from the photo, yep, there, one of those corners is blown out. That's all right. We are going to repair this on the video while I talk about it. An incomplete dice set, I am certain. Ooh, boy. Those are some unusual dice. Matching those. 4 out of a regular set of 7. Matching the, what am I missing? I'm missing a 4-sided and a 12-sided and a percentile. I can match those. That's going to be fun. That's a challenge. I like doing that. Let's look at these really quick before I start into the repair. Okay, so I'll do this repair off camera. We'll come back to that. We'll do all the repair stuff at once. Let's look at the books. Rules of play. This is this saddle stitched? No, this is perfect bound. Very nice. Very nice. So this has the complete rules for Castles and Crusades in it. Of course, you can, so you don't need, oh, very nice, pretty advertisement there in the back. You don't need the player's handbook to play the game. All the rules are right here, including the first 4 levels for the classes of Fighter, Cleric, Wizard, and Thief. The Keeper's Tome is the main book of the setting. And this follows, I mentioned that this has the DNA of Ravenloft in it. Ravenloft was an isolated setting. The Borovia was the name of the land, and it had wandering, not Romani, I forget exactly what they were called, but it had wandering gypsies in it. You've got some of the same kind of character there. But here in the Tainted Lands, this is a map of the Tainted Lands. And these are giant excavations by the demonic liches that rule the Tainted Lands. And it is surrounded by the mists. You can only get in and out of the Tainted Lands through a magical portal. And your reason for being here is to hunt down and destroy the portals, cutting the cursed Tainted Lands off from the rest of reality. Some very, very nice stuff. I haven't seen this artwork in a lot of other Castles and Crusades products. That tree with the bats on it, that floating castle, boy, that's pretty. The gypsy elves there, even these, just little quarter panel pieces. I haven't seen this artwork in a lot of their other books. Draco Lich. So the predominant enemy in the Tainted Lands, they're undead and assorted other abominations, but mostly undead and various flavors of undead. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Which is good, because in the player's compendium here, you have 4 new classes specifically for the Tainted Lands, and a description of 2 new attributes specifically for the Tainted Lands. The new classes are the Witch Hunter, the Metals Master, the Portal Keeper, and a Vampire. And those are completely statted out up to, looks like, level 20? Up to level 12, yeah, up to level 12, and then 13 and up has a general, the way the rest of them do in the player's handbook. The 2 new attributes are Psychic and Supernatural, and they allow you to interact with the undead in various ways, either controlling the undead or smiting them, I believe is what... and then you have various powers based on your level. So it's got a nice little twist. Characters in the Tainted Lands are equipped for the mission that is before them. The mission, oh, look at that. Goodness gracious. Wouldn't want to meet that in a dark alley. Party of players there. The characters are equipped for their mission in the Tainted Lands. Their mission begins at the Lollygag Inn. And this is just kind of your home base. It gives you a place to work out of and an introductory adventure. And then the Keeper's Tome is meant to allow you to construct the rest of the adventure, as well as some tips on how to run a horror game. Now, this is not a game of personal existential horror. Okay, this is not, there are no sparkling goths in this. There are no people lamenting about the dread of their existence and, oh, how they are doomed, where's my fainting couch? You are horror heroes dealing with horrible situations and some fairly horrible people at times. And you are going to be doing some fairly horrible things yourself. And in the end, cutting yourself off, if you can, some maps, if you can cut off all of the portals to the outside world, you are going to doom yourself to life in the Tainted Lands. And so the horror is very much an action horror, a physical horror. There's lots of room in here for body horror, and then with the undead threat, there's some existential room in there if you want to bring out those themes. But that is not the focus. The focus is on the fact that people have terrible, horrible natures, and that those natures are manifested in the Tainted Lands. Because ultimately, the Tainted Lands is a reflection of the people who live and rule in it. And as much as they have corrupted it, it begins to corrupt them in turn. It is, for me, one of the more satisfying horror settings to put a game in, because you have an enemy that can be fought, but the successful doing so is likely to cost you all of your character, everything about your character. It's likely to cost your character. At the very least, you're going to wind up trapped inside the Tainted Lands. Do I have any? Okay. All right. So this is an older set. You can still find the PDFs, but I was very pleased to find a box set. If you have older box sets, a lot of them have this very common type of damage. You can see how this is bowed in instead of flat on this corner. These corners are flat. It's just this one that is bowed in. I will fix this one off camera. You can find very good YouTube tutorials on how to do this. But essentially, I'm going to mist it lightly and iron it, and mist it lightly and iron it, and mist it lightly and iron it. And the idea is that you're going to dampen, moisten this cardboard so that the water allows the cardboard to flex and bend a little bit. Flatten that out, take the water out, do it again until it gets the shape that you want, and then it'll hold that shape. This is going to be a little more complicated repair. Now, back in the day, we would fix that kind of thing with clear packing tape or with cello tape, and I'm not going to do that because that is a horrible thing to do. Instead, one of the very best materials for repairing this kind of damage is actually just Elmer's School Glue. It's acid-free, it's non-toxic, it's easy to work with, and I have a bunch of it around. And it dries strong. So what we're going to do, first we're going to take our Castles and Crusades ruler. We're going to measure that. That looks like that is just about 13, well, not quite 13 millimeters. Let's see. Boy, that's tough to measure because it doesn't start from true. But if I measure on the ruler just over the 13 millimeter mark from the back, so it's about 2 centimeters and a little extra. And what I'm going to do is we're going to repair this corner. We're going to repair this corner by marking off this is just a cardstock, 110-pound cardstock. So I'm going to mark this right there, and then again right there. And this, and I'm going to cut this out and glue this inside the box to repair that bind. And let's see. So that's the height we need. We can basically make this any. I'll just check that. I want it to be. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to be reasonably level. We can make that any length we want. Doesn't need to be crazy. Just needs to bind. Just needs to bind the corner. And this is kind of cool. Thematic, I suppose, with the Tainted Lands. As one of the things I really like about the Tainted Lands is that they corrupt not just the characters, but your gear and your spells. Everything that you bring into the Tainted Lands begins to be corrupted by the negative energy that is in the portal. Everything gets the taint of evil in it. And I need to trim that. Somehow I measured that off. I'm not sure how I did that, but somehow I did. That's okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how I did that. Okay, that's all right. We're going to Do it again. And so one of the challenges from a game perspective, in a way, I suppose, for me anyway, is that you want to complete your mission and get out of the Tainted Lands before it wholly corrupts you. And I think that's a very fascinating that's a fascinating idea. That is just flush with the corner. I'm going to trim that down just a little bit more. And of course, this doesn't get seen. It's going to get pushed in to the back there. That sits just underneath the lip and will be completely unseen. I've got a right angle here that I'm going to use to get my bend right where I want it. A little bit of baking paper. This is just parchment paper like you would use to bake with. And we're going to use this because PVA glue doesn't stick to parchment paper. So I've got, or I suppose any type of glue. I've got, all right, so let's just, coat that. Really good. I'm going to go a little bit beyond where I expect my paper to reach. Now I don't really want a thick coating. There we go. I don't really want a thick coating. I just need enough to hold it on there, because the glue is going to be the bind, and the glue is what's going to bind it, but it is the paper. It's going to bind the paper, so I'm not relying just on the paper, and I'm not relying just on the glue to hold its shape. We're going to use both. All right, and I like this Elmer's because when it dries, I'm going to leave this probably overnight to dry. It is going to dry clear. I got my parchment paper to keep those there. Got my right angle. I put my right angle in there to hold its shape, and oh, there we go. First clamp in place, push that in, make sure that's where I want it to be. Clamp that in place there. And this should do the job without any difficulty at all. And when it's done, I'll have a nice square bind on that, and of course that's going to take some time to dry. And so this is wonderful. And I need to repair that. So while that's going to dry, Tainted Lands, I'm very excited to to get this. I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to inflict it upon my players before very long. It's a very visceral horror game. There's a lot at stake here. Because the Tainted Lands, if I remember this correctly, the Tainted Lands are growing. And if you don't do something about it, then, you know, they're going to break out. It's going to break out into the rest of reality, but you're in a position to fix it, and because you're heroes, you're going to. So let's look at some of the advice here for playing a horror game specific to this kind of horror game. Okay, the first one of the first things I notice is that you're going to want to run. Your player characters are going to want to run from some of these fights, because they are not going to be able to fight everything that they come up against, and that leads into helplessness. Helplessness is one of the essences of horror. And there are lots of things that lead into, that lend to that. Facing things that are unknown, keeping pressure on your players, and then having villains that just essentially outclass the players in every way. All lend to a helplessness. You don't know where you are. You don't have any chance to rest. And you're facing things that can't be fought, so you have to run. Now, there are it calls them strongholds of law and order in here, which makes it something that you can fight. There's some things on here, nature of horror. If they're expecting one thing, throw something else at them. Use waves of enemies. Make them treasure their hit points. Stories of woe. NPCs have horrible stories to tell them. Let's see, what are some other... Treasures have a tendency to turn on you. I really like that. One of the things... Everything is a cursed item in this world. That's so cool. Revenge never stops. People in the Tainted Lands, even if they think they are good, they are horrible people doing horrible things. And some of this is what I just bring to my own headcanon playing the game or reading the game. But it's like everybody who is here deserves to be here. And it's just... It resonates with me very strongly. Key to the Skull map. The different locations. You can totally run this as a hex crawl. And as you take down the liches who run this place, I believe there are consequences to doing that, if you can manage to do that. And then there's some stuff in here about the different types of undead and all kinds of things. One of the other things I really appreciate about this is it's really focused on undead as the enemy. We're not going all over the place. We're not dealing with vampires and werewolves and mummies and creatures from the Black Lagoon and monstrous beings and all kinds of stuff. This is very strongly focused on undead, with a little bit of stuff for variety. And I really appreciate this set. So you're looking for a good game to play. This has a complete rule set in it, and along with spells and character classes that are designed to be run in the Tainted Lands. I like this. I like Castles and Crusades in general, but I appreciate the Tainted Lands in specific, and I'm happy to have this as a physical resource. It's available on drive-through PDF, to get digitally, and I really recommend it. So, of course, your assignment is to go find a good game and play it. And when you're done, come on back here, because there is more book talk yet to come.